Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Today we shall be continuing with our basic tactics series, which is the series looking at the various special weapon options and heavy weapon options available to the Guard, and specifically referencing the infantry platoon. Today we shall be looking at the Flamer, and you guys know the format by now. We're going to start off by looking at what the Flamer is, its points, statistics, general uses, moving on to what other weapons it combos well with in the platoon, and finally where you should be putting them in your platoon. Should they be in infantry squads, command squads, etc, etc. So without further ado, let's get straight into the review. So the Flamer is a special weapon, and it costs 5 points. And for 5 points, what you get is a Strength 4 AP 5 template weapon, which means it's very short range. It uses the Flamer template, obviously, and it's not torrent. So what this means is you deploy the Flamer template from the some people do it from the barrel, some people do it from the base. I don't think anyone really complains which you do it from, but you basically deploy the Flamer template and it doesn't shoot anywhere, it just from your model in the general direction of the enemy's models, and you try and cover as many enemy models as possible. You don't need to roll to hit, you just roll to wound. So initially, a lot of people that I know, they like putting Flamers in their Guard squads, but it's actually something that I very rarely do. Because the Flamer is, the reason why people like the Flamer is because it's only 5 points, number one, so it's very cheap, and you don't have to roll to hit with it. Now, that eliminates what some people see as the biggest problem in the Guard army, which is mediocre ballistic skill. We only hit half the time. Well, if you remove the whole element of having to hit and you basically hit automatically, that sounds very appealing to many Guard commanders. So the problem with it, though, comes from the fact it's such a short range. This is why I don't like it. You see, if the Flamer can be used in two ways, I should say. Okay, on the attack or on the defense, and both of these, its range becomes an issue. On the attack, if you are running a foot slogging platoon, you are going to really struggle to get up there and bring the Flamer to bear. It might take you 3 or 4 turns, or 2 or 3 turns, to get into range with the Flamer, and finally you get off one burst at really close range, and that's probably all you're going to get from it. You're probably going to get shot to pieces or charged, or you're going to do the charging, in which case you'll be locked in combat when we get to use the Flamer. Really, I tend to find that Flamers get one good shot, and that's what you're paying for, essentially. You're paying 5 points for one good blast. So I think that's not like the best upgrade. I mean, in comparison to grenade launchers, which are also 5 points but have a 24-inch range, but they're also assault weapons, the grenade launcher will be firing pretty much every turn, and whilst it's only going to hit half the time, or it's going to scatter off because of its blast, it is going to shoot every time, and just by the fact that you're going to shoot it more often means you're going to have that potential to do a lot more damage. I mean, you might have 6 shots to the game, and in theory you only hit half the time, but you could be lucky and hit all 6 times. That does a lot of damage for 5 points. Anyway, that's going off topic. We're here to talk about Flamers, not about grenade launchers. So that's why I don't really like using them in my infantry platoons on the attack. Not in every way, but that's why I don't like putting them in my infantry squads. On the defensive, I hear a lot of people say, well, I like and honestly I get this a lot, I like to take flamers so that if I get charged, my opponent has to eat multiple D3 Wall of Death. And I'm like, okay, that's not a good reason to take a weapon, honestly. Think of it this way. If in 40k, assault is not really very good. So there's only certain units which are going to want to assault you a lot of the time. And let's say you've got a blob of 40 guards and you've given them 4 lascans and 4 flamers, and the flamers there defensively. If you've got an enemy unit which wants to assault 40 guardsmen, I can almost guarantee you it's not going to give a fuck about a few flamers. A good example of this is Wolfstar. Like, a Wolfstar with a 2+ rerollable armor save ain't going to give a fuck that you've got 4 flamers in your blob. It's not going to do a lot of damage. What I'm trying to say here, without repeating myself, is the reason why I don't like flamers as a defensive weapon, in the way that people like, say in the comments or say online, is that generally speaking, if an assault unit has got that close to you, you're in for a bad day anyway. And generally speaking, dedicated assault units these days in 40k either aren't taken, or they're still taken because they're really fucking powerful. And they're not the ones that are still taken aren't going to give a shit about some Wall of Death. So there you go. So that's a disadvantage of the flamer. So I know I've talked negatively about the flamer, but I actually do really like them. But they have to be used properly. Okay. Flamers, the advantage, they don't have to roll to hit. They wound. Let's just talk about positives for a second. They don't roll to hit, so that's great. Gets rid of mediocre ballistic skill. They're cheap, so they can be spammed. It's possible in many aspects of the platoon to take multiple flamers in squads. Either blob squads or infantry platoon command squads or special weapon squads, so they can be spammed really easily for low points. And they're strength 4, which generally means they're going to be wounding things on 3s or 4s. So the flamer has a lot of good properties. So I don't want you to think I don't think the flamer is any good whatsoever. I just think that the grenade launcher is more of a take-all-comer weapon, and the flamer is not. The flamer takes skill to use, which a lot of people, I think, don't know how to use it properly. So, what weapon does the flamer combo with well? Okay. Not many. Let's be honest, right? Not many. Because it's so short-ranged, and we've already talked about the fact that it's not really a defensive weapon, it's not going to do great on the defense, not in that way anyway, not in Wall of Death deterrent. I'm just going to say flat out, I don't think it combos well with anything. I think it does well on it works independently. Because, like I said, it's so short range, it's not really going to combo with any heavy weapons. Even the heavy bolter, which has only got a 36-inch range in comparison to all the other heavy weapons, which have got 48-inch range. Or even the heavy bolter, its primary job is to blast things apart at long range. Adding a flamer in there means that either you're going to be moving with your squad, and if you don't have a big squad, you won't be able to conga line, so your heavy weapon will be useless, or you're going to stay still, fire at long range, which case your flamer is a waste of 5 points. So I think the flamer shouldn't be comboed with any heavy weapons. Straight up. See, that's a nice quick section. So where does it find a home in the platoon? Well, I've already mentioned this a few places, a few times. Basic infantry squads, I don't really think flamers have a place in there. Because you're paying 5 points for one weapon, and it can't, which is fine. That's fine, but it basically means you're not going to have any long range firepower with that squad. That squad's going to be mobile. So, but because you can only take one template isn't a big deal. Blobbing up 40 men, you can take 4 flamers. Okay. But what about if you take a platoon command squad where for 5 men you can take 4 flamers? Yeah, that sounds pretty good. 40 men and pay 200 points for 4 flamers, or 5 men and pay 30 points for the ability to carry 4 flamers. Obviously, you've got to pay for the flamers on top of that. You see what I mean? So, however, if one is going to build a assault platoon, an assault blob, a power blob, then I think flamers have got a home there. I think if you're going to run like a 30 to 40 man blob, you've got your sergeants tricked out with power weapons and melter bombs, then it can be quite good to have a couple of flamers in a squad. I'd say, or have the flamers in the squad, like 3 or 4 flamers. I think that's good because then you can flame the shit out of something and finish it off. Although melter guns, you can argue, you can also shoot and charge with those, and grenade launchers. But if you've built yourself a power blob with the sole purpose of taking an objective from the enemy, then rocking 40 infantry with 4 flamers and some power weapons and a commissar, and just throwing them at and just marching them towards an objective and using your long range firepower to blow up any tanks along the way, yeah, that'll work. That's where flamers could find a home, because they're cheap, keeps points down. But that's otherwise, I wouldn't bother with them in your main infantry squads. Now, in the platoon command squad, I think they have some mileage, okay? Because you can take 4 of these things in platoon command squad. You can take 3 of them and a heavy flamer. A heavy flamer I'm going to do a separate video on. You take 3 of them and a heavy flamer. And what you can do is you can have your command squad in a chimera with some flamers, with 4 flamers, and you can either do a drive-by out the top hatch, shooting 2 flamers at the top, or you can do a handbrake turn, and what I mean by that is, or you can drive your chimera forward 6 inches, pivot on the spot, get the squad out 6 inches, and lay down 4 templates on someone. That is an effective way to use flamers defensively. Let's say your opponent comes at your face with not necessarily an invisible Death Star, but just with lots of assault units. You're shooting him. He gets close. Maybe it's a good idea for you to send out your suicide quad flamer platoon command squad, lay it down, flame. That could do some damage, and that's defensive. That's more of a counter attack. So flamers are better for counter attacking than just being there and trying to wall of death things. Now, one other thing to mention is I think flamers work really well, unlike sniper rifles, where we said that they used to work well in special weapon squads, but now not so much. I think flamers actually work really well in special weapon squads, really well. Because special weapon squads are cheap, number 1. You can take 3 flamers, great, number 2. So for 45 points, you get 3 flamers in a 6-man squad, and then you can put that squad in the back of a Vendetta, because Vendettas are good. Let's not forget that Vendettas are like our primary tank hunting unit. So what you can do is you can have your Vendetta fly over, las cannon some things for 2 turns, 1 or 2 turns, 2 or 3 turns, and then drop on the last turn, last turn or 2, drop your flamer squad out onto an objective. Hopefully there's not a lot of armor left if you've got 2 or 3 Vendettas swirling around. You drop onto the objective, flamer it off with your 3 flamers, and guess what? Special weapon squads are part of a platoon, which means they're troop choice, which means they're OBSEC. That's great. Nothing like having a 6-man squad burn the shit out of an enemy unit and then also be like, oh yeah, by the way, OBSEC. So you get that point and you don't if you've got anyone left alive after 3 flamers. Yeah. So, and likewise, if you wanted to, you could put those flamers in a chimera, but I don't think that would work best. I think you want your platoon command squad in the chimera with flamers. If you're certain you want to take flamers, this is how I do it. Because caveat here, I would say you don't need to take flamers at all. I never use them. honestly, I don't use them in my guard army. Some people are going to be confused with this, but I use them in my scions a lot more. Because you can deep strike down, pinpoint, 2 flamers, twin link them, bam. Or 4 flamers, twin link them, bam. But that's a different video. If you are dead set on using flamers in your army, I'll just recap on how I would deploy them there. Platoon command squad, 3 flamers and a heavy flamer in a chimera. The reason you want them in a chimera and not in a vendetta is because you'll still be able to issue orders, which are really important, and you'll still be able to counter attack with them either out the top hatch or swing around 6 inches and 4 templates down in one go. I put special flavors and special weapon squads in a vendetta because they can't issue orders, special weapon squads, so you're perfectly happy for them to be sat in a vendetta 2 or 3 turns because you're not losing anything, and you can drop down near the end of the game, flame the shit out of something, or if you've got a unit running amok in your lines, you can drop down, help flame them. Basically, that's like a rapid reaction squad. You can deploy that force where needed. There you go, and I wouldn't really put flamers in infantry squads unless you had to, and then I would put them in a good old-fashioned power blob and march them towards an objective, flaming and las gunning things along the way. Okay, so I know a lot of people in the guard like flamers, and I know I'm probably getting a lot of comments that don't agree with me on this video. That's fine. No one has to agree with me. I'm just going off my experience, obviously. But let me just say before I get a lot of potentially ragey comments, I don't think the flamer is a bad weapon. I just think that the guard can sometimes struggle to apply it correctly. Okay? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it's been informative. As always, I hope it's given you some good ideas. If you agree or disagree with me, of course, let me know in the comments. I do try and reply to every comment that I can. I don't think I've missed any so far. But yeah, please leave a comment, and if I may learn something new from you guys, which is always great. So thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.